Dr. Mayo with the second video in this series on how to be a good college student. If you haven't seen the first video, I encourage you to go back and watch it. It's just kind of intro to me and some of my background and why I'm making these videos. In this second video, I'll be talking about expectations. If you would like to see more of these videos or be notified when these videos come about, hit the notification bell, subscribe to my channel, and of course, leave a like or comment after you take a look at this video. So let's talk about expectations. And you notice in the title I put set expectations, noun or verb. So in other words, are they static or is it something that we could be actively doing? In the college students that I've seen come through that have been successful, it's been very apparent that in their previous educational, in their previous education, in their academic work, they've had higher expectations placed upon them. I struggle with that coming in the university setting at times and trying to find the expectation level for a particular class. And there's been, and over the years, I've tried really hard as a professor to raise expectations from year to year for myself and then for the students that come through the classroom. If you have low expectations of where you are currently in whatever setting of education you're in, you will meet those expectations. If you put a twig on the ground and you say, I'm going to jump over that twig, or somebody puts a twig on the ground and says, that's all you got to do is jump over this twig. Guess what? That's all you're going to ever do is jump over that twig. Very few people will say, I see a twig, but I'm going to still try to jump 4 feet over the thing. Okay? So some of you are in an educational system where they have set the bar at 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet. Wow, right? You really got to work. Don't look at that as something that's a bad thing. Look at that as something that is going to do what it's designed to do, which is push you. And you're going to be ahead of the game from so many other students that come in unprepared because they either never recognized the expectations were low and never set their own, or they complained about the expectations were a little bit higher before that and never met them. They fell short of the bar and somehow still were able to pass and go on to college. So when it comes to the characteristics and the habits of successful college students, one of them is expectations. And I would encourage you now, again, whatever your situation is, you have to recognize it. And the way you can tell is like, okay, in school, I can just glide through without being pushed. So I can show up and just sit there, not even take notes, do whatever it is in the class and do very little effort in my homework and get a B plus or an A grade. Well, expectations are low in that class. So what I encourage you to do is to push expectations for yourself in the class. Go the extra mile. What could that extra mile be? Well, write an extra paper, right? Like write an extra page of a paper. So if the word limit or the page limit is 4 pages, and that's what you need to hit, write 5. Okay? Write another page. Take the time to do that. Read another book peripheral to the information in the class that's not provided. There are a lot of great books out there that aren't textbooks. So if you're interested in psychology, find a psychology book. If you're in my field of exercise, sports science, nutrition science, you can pick up books like The Talent Code, Sports Gene, right? These are all books that pull in some of these concepts that are easy reads that are interesting reads as well. Lots of nutrition books out there, okay? And so I have book club that I'm talking about books as well that are not textbooks per se. They're just books on training. Take a look at some of those books. Raise your expectations for yourself. It shows up in the classroom. Read a classic novel that you may not have read. Find one, get one of these novels and read it. It does a lot to expand your vocabulary, your critical thinking skills, and your perception and ability to understand other people. It makes a difference. It may not seem like it will, but it will over time. And it's very obvious to me as a professor when those type of students come in the classroom and I have them do something as straightforward and seemingly benign as a lab report. Those students can write, they can think, they can organize their thoughts. And it's very obvious before I've had a chance to spend much time with them as myself as an instructor that they have had expectations placed on them at some point. I don't buy into this whole thing. It's like in sports, somebody can be a great athlete, but they'll never be a great player. They'll never be somebody that's been known as a great player if they don't apply themselves. You can jump really high and run really fast, but you still have to know how to play the game. You still got to know how to, if we're going to put this in the context, say, of basketball, you still got to be able to shoot. You still got to be able to rebound. You still got to be able to position your body. I'm just using a sports analogy here. And it's the same thing. You could have all this talent in the world as intellectually, but if you never engage it, you'll never use it. Now, if you're like me and not very talented, like that you struggle with information a lot more, you're going to have to work a little harder. And that's okay too. Still have expectations for yourself. So if you recognize that the expectations that are currently placed on you in your current setting are not high enough, you need to take active control and set those. This could be something even not even directly related to a class. Like you could go help at a food bank. That gains perspective, right? You could read a book, like I mentioned, some books that are not even related to the actual topic of the class. I mean, those things are all going to expand your perspectives. Those things are all going to teach you more about people, and you never know who you run into. And that person says something, and that leads to another chunk of knowledge, or an opportunity to expand and lo and behold, over time, you start to grow as a person. And I'll talk about specific skills for college students and how to refine some of those. But I wanted to start with something which I think is glaring to me for students that don't succeed and the ones who do, and that is the expectation level ahead of time before they come to college. And then once they're even in college, again, I had low expectations placed to myself. I'll take responsibility for that as well. I didn't recognize it at the time, and guess what happened when I graduated? I was not prepared to enter the workforce that I was interested in. I was behind in my knowledge. I was behind in my understanding of my field. Even with some internships, I still was behind because I never applied myself in all those hours I spent in classrooms. I just was trying to get through the class in order to check mark a box to graduate. And that's not a right approach. That's low expectations. Even in classes you don't like, set the expectations high, and that way you stay engaged. And believe me when I say, once you get out into society, in the real world, you'll be surprised at all the skills you use, even in your field that you've selected, that may not at the time seem very applicable. Like most people say, well, you'll never use algebra in your life. Well, maybe you don't ever use the equations exactly, but you will use the concepts of following directions, of being able to follow a sequence of events to solve a problem. And that is the real key. And we'll talk about that in other videos, is critical thinking skills. But I will leave it there. Just analyze your own expectations that are placed on you now, if they're where they need to be, and if they are not where they need to be, and you know that your expectations should be higher for yourself, set them higher, even if somebody else won't do it for you.